Hi crafty friends, it's Jarle here for Cloud9 Crafts. I'm finally back with another video. I'm showing you how I created a slimline card for the current challenge, which is all about big sentiments. For this card I'm using the adorable Bear Hugs sequins together with the Happy Hugs stamp set from Fawn. For my sentiment I'm using the Scripty Hugs die and a sentiment banner. And the scalloped slimline with hearts in the portrait version is my basic die for today. I started by die cutting a scalloped rectangle out of raspberry cardstock and the heart backdrop out of Bristol smooth cardstock. I will do some ink blending on this one. I'm using distress oxides for this in the colors Spun Sugar, Picked Raspberry and Festive Berries. As always, I'm using blending brushes to ink the whole panel. So I'm starting out with the lightest color, which is the Spun Sugar. Then I'm going over to the medium color, Picked Raspberry. After going back to the Spun Sugar, I'm going in with the third and darkest color. And then I'm just going back and forth between dark and medium, medium and light. And I just repeat this process until I'm happy with the results. If you have trouble ink blending, I definitely recommend trying the Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is really the best cardstock for ink blending. And also, distress oxides blend beautifully. I find them way easier than the regular distress inks. So, if I'm blending whole backgrounds, I always use oxides. I let my background dry for just a bit while I'm doing a bit of stamping. I'm gonna take out my Zig watercolor markers, so I stamped my images on Bristol Smooth cardstock using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I always use this ink when watercoloring. After that, I decided I wanted to add splatters to my background. So I first started by putting one drip of liquid stardust onto a stamping block. With a wet paintbrush, I then splattered the stardust all over my panel. And to add just a little bit more interest, I also added Festive Berries ink on a stamping block and diluted it with a bit of water. Then, just like before, I splattered in on my background panel. This had to dry a little bit so I could go over to my coloring. As mentioned, I took out my Zig markers. I don't use a paintbrush, actually just the Zig blender, and it works like a charm. So I started with the colors Oatmeal and Beige here. I start off with Oatmeal, which is the lighter color, and I blend it out. And then I go over the dark areas with the beige color. And I blend that one out with Oatmeal and then with the blender. I go over it a few times until I'm happy with the darkest bits. If you have trouble coloring, you should definitely give these markers a go. These are super easy to use. I'm not showing you the rest of the coloring on camera since I always use the same method. I will list the colors I used below in the description box. I decided to make a shaker card. I started with putting a piece of acetate on the back of my background panel. So that's this panel with the hearts. Then I used heavy doodle tape to create a well for my shaker pieces. As you see me doing here, I am putting foam tape all around the hearts. So I actually created 3 wells for my sequins to dance in. And then I put in those cute bear sprinklets before removing the backing of the foam tape. And since it's quite delicate, I'm using my Spellbinders all-in-one tool for this. Then I close the shaker piece by putting over a piece of Fawn white 80-pound cardstock. Always make sure that you press down firmly before moving on to the next step so that your sequins won't fall out. After that, I put down my heart panel onto the dark pink scalloped panel. For my sentiment, I die cut the Scripty Hugs twice out of black cardstock. I stacked these on top of each other to create just a little bit of dimension, and then I put it in the middle of my card. Then I decided where to put down my two small images. I just glued them down with some liquid adhesive. For the second piece of my sentiment, I took the sanding out of the All the Clouds stamp set and stamped it with Versamark ink onto black cardstock. I sprinkled on some white embossing powder and off camera I heat set it with my heat gun. I trimmed it down with the sentiment banner and glued it on top of my panel. My card is almost finished now. I trimmed down a piece of Lawn Fawn cardstock 120 pounds to 7 by 8.5 inches. I scored it at 3.5 to create my slimline card base. I put down my panel after that with my ATG gun. Now it just needs some finishing touches. I started by putting down glossy accents all over the Scripty hugs. I really like the shine this gives. It makes the sentiment stand out even more. I also put down a few Nouveau drops in the colors Strawberry Coulis and Rose Water. This finishes off my card for today. I'm really happy with how it turned out and I hope you like it too. By the way, in the description box below you will find a link with all the supplies I used for this card. Thank you so much for watching and I will be back soon. Bye!